Hi, guys. I am Shauna with Soul Truth Aligned, and I am here to talk a little bit about my path. How in the world did I end up here? How did I become aware of my abilities? How did I end up trance channeling? How did I do this? It was really purely through healing, 100% through healing. I had no idea any of this existed most of my life. I had no exposure. I had no understanding that my mother had any abilities. I had nothing. So I did have a really hard life and a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of self worth issues. I had zero self worth. I was looking for happiness in everything else, just like most of us do, because that's what we're kind of taught here. And I was in a not great relationship for a long time, and I was going through a divorce. And I decided I just needed to be free of what was happening for both of us in that relationship. I believe we're all part of everything. So there's a reason that was happening. And I think it served me very well. But anyhow, so I was going through divorce. It was the first weekend I had to leave my children with him. And I had never been away from them. And I really just didn't know how to deal with that very well. And I went to my brother's house for a while, and I was headed back home, and I was in my car by myself, windows up, crying. I was so unhappy to not have my babies with me, and, um, I was just whining and, speaking to the universe as I was driving, as I always do, and I was saying, "Why can I not be happy? I just want to be happy. I deserve happiness. I don't understand why things have to be this way." And frankly, I think the visit at my brother's house didn't go well either. And that was kind of part of that. So it was kind of a buildup of things that had been happening and my heartbreak at the time. And I was just whining and yelling. And all of a sudden, I'm like mid sniffle and I hear an audible voice in my car. Um, and it was very clear. It was loud and it spoke with wisdom. And it said to me, "Shauna, happiness is a choice. Just choose it." And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like this was just truth. And I am big on truth. I know when something's true and when something's not. So when that hit me with this ball of truth, I just took a deep breath and was like, "Well, then I'm happy." And I wiped away my tears. I said, "I'm happy. Damn it. I don't care what's happening in my life. I'm going to be happy." And I kind of stuck with that for a while, but I immediately knew I was making a choice and that I really did have a choice to get myself to think differently and to feel differently and to look at things differently. And although I had been in years of therapy, that never came to me. Like, it was just putting out fires at the time, and so I went home and I really just felt this energy, and it had to have been a guide or what have you. Um, and now that I look back on it, I think it's very funny that I didn't question that. I didn't say, "Oh my god, I heard an audible voice." Have you ever heard an audible voice before? Like, that was weird. I didn't. It was like I just completely forgot that aspect, like it was normal, which it wasn't for me, and it still isn't. I've never heard another one audible like that, and I so I started paying attention. I started be working with mindfulness, right? At the time, mindfulness was kind of everywhere. And I know I went looking for books and I couldn't find anything that I really felt fit me. And I'm not a reader anyway. So I just started thinking about, well, what makes sense? So I started talking to the universe some more. And all of a sudden, I was like, you know what? I just need to pay attention to what's going on in my brain. How am I talking to myself? Let's start there. And I started working on all of the negativity that I was repeating from my childhood, all of the demeaning, all of the mean things, all of the judgmental stuff. I started working on that. And every time I heard myself be ridiculous with myself, I would say, "No, that's not the truth of me. This is." And I would replace it with something positive. And I'm telling you, at first, I rolled my eyes every time, but I was like, "I have to do this." There was something in me my guides, I'm sure, telling me this was the way, this was the path to freedom for me from all the anger and the depression and the unhappiness. Like it just had to go. And I will tell you that through most of my life, I always felt like there's more to life than this. This is crazy. What are we doing here? Just going to work and paying bills and coming home, or going to school, coming home and having to do chores and being mistreated. Like I felt like there was so much more to life, but I had no idea. And so as I started going through this process of healing, and as I started beginning to realize that those replaced statements, the positive, the truthful ones were really truthful. And as that took place, and now this took a couple years, you guys, like at least a year to really make a dent. Like I was so resistant to it, even though I was forcing myself to do it. So I went through that. I tried to see things from different perspectives. I tried to hear what other people thought without judgment, without feeling like they were telling me I was wrong or any of those things. I did a lot of just opening up, and I did it pretty much on my own. And so it took a while. So that was 2007, probably beginning of 2007, and end of 2006. So I would say I just kept working on those things, and I kept catching myself in behaviors. I had a lot of anger, so I kept catching myself being angry, and I had to own it, and I had to do different things, like, and when I say anger, I was rage-filled for years, and I would have really embarrassing issues in parking lots and stores, and I would go off on someone, and I mean go off on them, and I would feel out of body, like I couldn't stop it, I couldn't control it, and I wanted that to stop. So at first I started with the mindfulness, and I kept with that, that kept going, and then I added, "Oh, it's time to own your behavior. You can allow these things go on." I literally would have an incident with somebody at a store or something. I would go back and go back and go back, and I would just say, "Please bring these people back to me." And I would apologize to them, and I would own it, and I would tell them, "I'm so sorry. That had nothing to do with you, and I just had no control, and I I want you to know that I'm sorry for that." And I started doing that in different places. I mean, you just never knew when something was gonna happen. I was so just the anger was so out of control. So I started doing that, and boy, let me tell you, that made a difference. Calling yourself out on something and owning your behavior, wow, what a big difference that made. And I just kept doing things like that. I just kept catching myself doing things or saying things, and I just kept rerouting it. And I really calmed down a lot by, I think 2010. But then I started noticing that I was super sensitive to other people's stuff. And we were living in an apartment, of course. And there was, we're surrounded by people in an apartment. And I was, having neighbors were fighting, and it was really affecting me. I could really feel all of the emotions and the anger and the frustration and the happiness that was happening in other units around me. And I was like, I just can't do this. And I did have to get some help, but my dad helped me, and we bought just a trailer in a trailer park that was an okay park, lots of families, and it at least didn't share walls with people. So I was like, yay. So I had to do that. There were changes I had to make in my life. There were people who didn't understand me, who wanted that other person that I used to be as things were changing. I had a lot of tests in that period of time, and I had to let a lot of people go, which, I'm pretty good at, honestly. Unfortunately, most of my family doesn't understand me and never have. And, therefore, they're not interested in being part of my life, which is fine. I get it. I love them and I understand. So at that point, so it was like 2012, I moved, and by that point, I was on Facebook or somewhere, and I kept having this one woman come through my feed, and she was a teacher, a spiritual metaphysical teacher, and she offered a class that was called "Awaken the Healer Within." A very nice lady. I had no money, so I I signed up for a free talk with her, and I couldn't understand why I was doing it. I had no spiritual understandings at the time, and I just it wouldn't quit, and I just kept feeling like my guides push me from within, and I feel a push like, "I have to do this, I have to do this," and it will haunt me until I do. So I did, and I met with her, and I remember our conversation pretty well. She was a very nice lady. I believe she was from the UK or in the UK. And she, at one point, she said to me, "I don't know how you are the way you are." And I said, what do you mean?" You can imagine. I was like, "Oh God." She goes, "I can see what you've been through. I can sense it. I can feel it. I can see what you've been through. And yet your heart is so full of love." And she said, "That's so rare." And then, of course, she went on to tell me that, the angelics or around the archangels were really, and still are, really work with me a lot. They are guides for me. And I was kind of like, "Oh Lord." And she was like, "I really think that the class would help you." Of course. And I said, "Oh, honey, I can't afford $400 a month." you know, I was like, "There's no way." As it is, we're struggling. And so she offered me a lesser amount, and she was really surprised at what that lesser amount was because she said she doesn't usually offer it to people for that little. But Spirit was insistent that I didn't have the money, which I did not. So I took her class for a while, and that really helped me understand some of the concepts. And she was teaching a specific modality, and it was with the angels, but it was very commanding and very demanding. And I didn't do well with that. That's not how I operate, and it was uncomfortable. So um, and at that time I was having all kinds of things come in. So all of a sudden things were moving in my house, people were running me off the road. There was a lot of dark energy issues that came at me, a lot. My bed moving at night, different things. And I was like, it just made me mad that was happening and I didn't deserve it, right? It was just another level of, I don't deserve this and I'm not going to put up with it. And I did have access to her and other healers that were in the class. So I connected with a couple other people, and I worked with one in particular student healer for a long time, which was one of the reasons I ended up moving up to Oregon. I wasn't super close to her at the time, but we went up there to meet her, and I was introduced to Oregon, and I was like, "Wow, trees, I gotta be there." So that's how we ended up moving again up to Oregon. And, what I found was through all of this, um, Spirit would bring to me people who could help me. Whether it be YouTube videos or it be a healer that was like, "Hey, how are you? You look interesting to me." And we would talk, or we would get going and we would exchange. I had different people that I could exchange with. And I could get their feedback and they could get mine. And it was practice and understandings coming in and knowing that, oh, I don't really agree with the way she does that, but it's hers. I'm going to do it this way. Realizing that I needed to make things mine, just as you would, right? Like, we are individuals. Nobody knows everything, and nobody knows the only way to do things. Um, and anyway, I just started all of a sudden learning. So it started with a healing path, healing myself, connecting deeper to myself was really the key. Because what I realized is our guidance is coming from within. This is part of us. It is in us. It is present with us at all times. And as we begin to open up to that and learn, we expand in ways we had no idea. So, you're looking at 2013, 2014, it's now 2026. They had me start running energy, which they called angelic healing energy. Um, there was so many things that just kind of I had to do. And I really learned everything from my guides, from what they made me feel I had to do, and following it, which sometimes was nerve wracking and scary. But if you at all feel called to something, I really would suggest you do what you're feeling called to. no matter what teacher or guru you've been listening to, nobody knows everything. There's more than one way to do everything. And just connect with yourself and expand. That's really where it is. At least it has been for me and for the clients that I work with. That's why I offer, a coaching. Um, and it's really about empowering you. It's about connecting you to yourself. It's about you seeing where in life you have removed your power, where you don't matter and you should, getting yourself back into the picture because a lot of us, especially women, tend to lose ourselves in the children and the being the wife and all of that. And it's not that that isn't all beautiful and wonderful. It is. There's a way to do it. And so hold on to ourselves. So having to learn who you are and connecting deeply to the truest parts of yourself, that's always my goal with people is to help them do that. And honestly, I am always learning. I am always learning and always expanding, and I am excited about that. I don't know that I ever want that to change. I think that the times are changing so rapidly that we really need to be open to different things. We need to be open to what feels like, oh, that feels right. Oh, that doesn't. And it's okay for other people to do things differently. This was another piece of this aspect that was just who I am, which is you don't have to agree with the way I do things. I can give you a concept and I'm going to tell you, make it yours. What works for you? There is no one way to do things. There is just no one and only, and they can change over time. So you learn different things that feel resonant with you, and then you bring those into practice as well. So, and it isn't that my coaching is all about you becoming spiritual because it's not. It's really about you becoming connected to yourself so that you can live happy in your life, achieve the goals you want to achieve, and love yourself some. Like, so, anyhow, I probably talked for a little bit too long, but this is how I got where I'm at right now. And I could probably do a little more if anybody's interested in hearing more specifics or about certain aspects of life and changes. But thank you for listening and have a beautiful day.